So I've got a little bit of time. I'm waiting for some paint to dry, making samples, and I'm gonna cook dinner in a minute. But I wanted to tell a little story because I was talking to a friend earlier on the phone, and it got me thinking about, well, where was I a year ago today? So this is kind of like a check-in, but also just like a reminder to myself of like, where was I a year ago today? Like a year ago at this time. So a year ago at this time, I was living out of my car at a storage unit. And I didn't have a job. I was doing Uber Eats deliveries, which was giving me like just enough money to like eat for the day, put gas back in my car. And that's all I had. I was living literally a day-to-day existence, and no one would help me. And people like I was also like I was having like rocks thrown. I was being kicked out of neighborhoods. Like people were throwing rocks at my car. It's like they wouldn't let me sleep in the neighborhood. I was being chased by like car gangs and shit like that. Like when I was doing deliveries and stuff like that, or at night. And I called myself at that time. I was referring to myself as Palm Springs' #1 social pariah. And I even had written, I had written maybe like a manuscript or something like that. It was over 100 pages of all handwritten. I wrote it one night where I'd just gotten this, like, it was actually during the storm last winter. It was when I wrote this, I was homeless because I'd gotten kicked out of my sober living. That's why. And I wrote this while I was still at my sober living. I'd stayed up all night. I was inspired, and it just kept writing. It came out. It was like over 100 pages handwritten. And I remember giving it to someone, a person for Sunny Dunes actually, and to read because I owed him $175. He'd paid for my phone bill. My phone got shut off, and I said, I'd really like to pay you back that $175. Can you read this manuscript and see if like maybe like you think it would, you know people, like you knew a lot of people, like maybe you could like give it to someone, maybe you could go somewhere or something, you know? So he read it. It took him like a month. He gave it back to me, and he was like, wow, a lot of interesting things happened to you. And I was just like, that's it? That's all you can say? And like, at this point now, I've been kicked out of my sober living. Like I've been, you know, and I was just like, you know, and the whole story that I wrote was about, like, it started with this drip because there was a drip in my room. And the story started out with me like listening to the drip and like not being able to do anything about it. And then also referring to myself as Palm Springs' #1 social pariah, but it was like, here, before you judge, if that's what you think I am, because that's how I felt like everyone treated me, if that's what you think I am, I want you to put my shoes on and let's go for a little walk. I want to show you something. And that was like a recurring theme throughout the whole thing of like, okay, how are those shoes fit? What do you think now? We're going to take a walk, and we're going to go along a cliff, and, you know, walk along the edge, and it's a high road, and all this bullshit, you know, everything. When we get to the finish line, there's another mile, we're going to go the extra mile. And the whole point of it was to show that like I really wasn't a social pariah, that I just made some bad decisions and, you know, was cast as in a certain way, you know, through my own, you know, whatever, by, you know, using crystal meth and everything. And anyway, so yeah, I had that same time, what was happening with my family was that my sister was planning her wedding, and there was talk about flying me back for the wedding. And I was like, well, I don't, like, if you guys buy me a round trip ticket, I don't want to come back here. Like, and here's the other thing. Well, the other thing was, I had already, like, I had relapsed. I forgot when I had relapsed. You know, whatever. I don't know. About a year prior to that, or 8 months prior to that, I changed my phone number, and I didn't want to talk to my family anymore because they were making me relapse constantly. Like every time I talked to them, it was just, you know, I was trying to break a cycle. I was trying to break an addiction cycle, and I felt like I had to disconnect with my family in order to do that. And but I felt bad. I felt like I needed to at least give my sister my number just in case anything, you know, emergencies or anything like that. So my sister was my only link to my family, and she was the only one who really, I would tell my sister exactly what was pretty much, you know, what was going on with me and stuff like that. She knew what was happening. And so she's talking to me about, you know, flying me back for a wedding and everything. And I was like, well, you don't understand. Like, I don't want to come back here. Like, I have nothing to come back to. Like, I have a miserable existence where I'm living day to day. I'm living on my car. My car's falling apart. Like, and, you know, I have a storage unit, and everything, whatever I have left is in that storage unit, and my clothes and stuff like that. And that's it. And I have nothing to come, I have no job. I have nothing to come back to. I don't want to come back here. And so at that time, also, my my uncle had been recently diagnosed with cancer and was undergoing treatment, and so he and my aunt lived alone in their big house. And so I said, well, why don't you see if, Auntie Pat wants me to come, Auntie Pat and Granny want me to come there, I'll help take care of Uncle Ronnie and, drive them around, because they didn't drive or anything like that. And so I said, and then, instead of paying for a ticket, just pay for the repairs to my car and I'll drive home, and that'll be it, and I'll be done with California. And so, because I was done at that point, I really was. I just felt like no one was helping me. I felt like I was the most hated person in the city. This was just a year ago. This is where I was a year ago, right? And so I remember that I'll never forget this day. I just gone up, whatever, changed, and I would go to my storage unit, change my clothes, and then start doing deliveries and stuff like that. And I like farted, right? But it was a shark. It was like, I was like, oh my God, like that, I think that was something. I like, that was not, oh. And I remember like it felt wet, and I reached my hand back in my, I was wearing like Adidas, track pants or something like that. And I reached my hand back and I was like, oh my God, I fucking shit on my hands, right? And then the fucking phone rings, and it was my sister, and I was like, oh, thank God, this is gonna be my sister telling me I can finally get the fuck out of here. I didn't even care, right? And I answered the phone, and my sister, and I was like, well, what did they say? What did they say? And she's like, oh, she doesn't want you here. She doesn't want you at her house. And I was like, what? And I was like, I couldn't fucking believe it. I was like, I'm stuck here. Is that like she's telling me I'm fucking stuck here? And I was like, and I was like, well, what does she? I'm like, did you tell her what's going on? Did you tell her I have nothing? And I'm like living out of my garden. She's like, no, I didn't know if you want me to tell her. And I was like, how could you not? It's this whole argument with my sister. And then I was just like, that's it. I gotta go. I just shut off my family at that moment. And I was like, I gotta go find a bath. I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta find a bathroom. I gotta go. So I'll talk to you another time. Whatever. Goodbye. and that's what the moment that I realized I had to figure my life out on my own. I couldn't depend on my family. And and at that point I didn't even feel like I could depend on the state of California either, because I'd been, I'd asked for help. I'd called the hotline, the fucking homeless hotline, and they're like, oh, it sounds like you're calling from your car, so, you can stay in your car tonight, don't worry about it, that's not gonna cost anything, and, by the way, this is for real homeless people who are actually homeless, you have your car, so you can stay there, but if you ever lose the car, give us a call back, and, we'll see what we can do for you. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't even fucking believe it. Are you kidding me? So it's sleeping in your car is like sleeping in your home in California, that's what goes down here, And so yeah, it was a really dark time in my life, and it's weird. I just, my sister called today. I didn't want to answer the phone because I didn't want to talk to her, and I just was like, and then it reminded me of where I was a year ago. That was literally a year ago that all that was going on. And this morning I started the day talking about gratitude. What am I grateful for myself? And yeah, it's I was struggling, and part of it was, I can say I'm grateful that I am I'm not where I was a year ago. Okay, so I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for whatever changes I've had to make to myself, in my behavior to get myself out of that fucking nightmare scenario that I was in. And I'm grateful to the help that I've gotten along the way in getting there, because I haven't done it by myself. And I'm grateful to, I guess I'm grateful to myself for whatever I've done to help myself get myself out of that situation, because it was hell. That was hell. That was the worst day of my life. That was the worst day of my life. And that was just a year ago. And so, I imagine only things can just hopefully just keep getting better, I hope, because I don't ever want to go back there. I know that. And that was the worst of the worst, for sure. Fuck. And then I remember, so I was in this parking lot with the McDonald's, and I thought, okay, after I got off the phone with my sister, I was like, I'm gonna go to the McDonald's and use the bathroom. When the fucking McDonald's was fucking closed, the lobby was closed, and I was like, right? And then I fucking again. And then I was like, well, I'm gonna have to fucking pay for it. I decided to go to Starbucks, wait in line, get a fucking coffee with this fucking sweater wrapped around my neck, or wrapped around my waist, so you couldn't see that I fucking shat my pants. And I was just like, oh God, it was, and then just it was diarrhea. So it was standing there hoping that I didn't fucking shit in line. And it was just the fucking worst. That was the worst. The worst moment of my life. And I'm glad it's over.